Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Malia Hampton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Alex Mobbs. Today marks 105 years since the Battle of Magdaba, fought by members of the Australian Light Horse in Sinai in 1916. The Turkish defeat at Romani in August 1916 forced the enemy to retreat inlands towards Palestine, pursued by Allied units. Their withdrawal was halted in December, with Turkish forces developing two strongholds at El Arish and Magdaba, which barred the way to Palestine. Under the command of Major General Henry Chauvel, units of the Anzac Mounted Division and Imperial Camel Corps moved into position to attack on the 23rd of December 1916. Advancing over exposed and difficult terrain and without access to water, these units came under heavy fire from Turkish redoubts as they attempted to encircle the enemy. Despite being faced with seemingly insurmountable difficulties, Chauvel's unit successfully broke through the enemy redoubts, forcing the garrison to surrender by 4:30 that same afternoon. The capture of Magdaba allowed Chauvel's men to consolidate their capture of El Arish and permanently forced Turkish units out of the Sinai. We warmly welcome Mr. John King, President of the Returned and Service League of Australia ACT branch. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free, with golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Captain Mervyn Bournes Higgins. Mervyn Higgins was born on the 8th of November 1887 in the Melbourne suburb of Malvern, the only child of Justice of the High Court of Australia, Henry Bournes Higgins, and his wife, Mary. Mervyn received his education at Melbourne Church of England Grammar School, where he was a keen sportsman and a member of the school cadet corps. On completion of his schooling, he attended Melbourne University's Ormond College before moving to England in 1906. He attended Oxford's Balliol College, where he studied a Bachelor of Arts and Honours in Legal Theory. He was captain of the college boat club and a member of the rowing club. Mervyn graduated in 1910 and returned to Australia shortly after. He was admitted to the bar in 1912 and was working as a barrister and associate to his father in the High Court in the outbreak of the war in 1914. Mervyn Higgins enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 4th of November 1914. He was assigned to the 8th Australian Light Horse Regiment with the rank of private and was sent to Broadmeadows Camp. Completing officers' training, he received his commission as a second lieutenant on the 3rd of February 1915. He embarked for active service from Melbourne later that month, travelling on board the troop ship Star of Victoria. Higgins arrived at the Gallipoli Peninsula in May and was promoted to lieutenant. In August, he took part in the Light Horse's disastrous attack at the Neck and was one of only 2 officers in his unit to survive the battle, which cost hundreds of Australian casualties. He was promoted to the rank of temporary captain and adjutant shortly after the bloody August offensive. His unit played a predominantly defensive role on the peninsula from that point until December 1915, when the campaign was abandoned and his unit returned to Egypt. In January 1916, Higgins' promotion to captain was finalised. 2 months later, his unit became part of the Anzac Mounted Division and joined troops defending the vital Suez Canal from Ottoman forces. By August 1916, the enemy had been turned back at Romani, retreating across the desert, followed by light horse units. In October, as Allied units continued to push the enemy back, Higgins was mentioned in dispatches for bravery in the field. The following month, he was withdrawn from the front and sent to a school of instruction for mounted units. He returned to the lines on the 19th of December 1916, rejoining his unit on the Palestine frontier. 3 days later, Allied units received orders to attack the enemy stronghold at Magdaba. On the morning of the 23rd of December, members of the Australian Flying Corps bombed Turkish positions at Magdaba. Mounted units attacked shortly after, attempting to encircle the enemy and force their surrender. Higgins' unit attacked via the northern flank, coming under heavy fire from enemy lines. Pushing through, the enemy garrison surrendered that afternoon. Allied units took nearly 1,300 prisoners, but suffered 146 casualties of their own. Among the dead was Captain Mervyn Higgins, who had been shot through the head and killed instantly. One of his men recalled, "The regiment were making an attack on Magdaba when the frontline enemy suddenly threw up their hands as a sign of surrender. Captain Higgins, at the head of the regiment, at once advanced to take them prisoner, as they had apparently surrendered. When they opened fire, again, killing the captain outright alongside 3 or 4 others. Captain Higgins was buried near where he fell. His remains were later moved to Kantara War Memorial Cemetery, where they lie today among more than 2,000 soldiers of the First World War. His parents received multiple letters of condolence from their son's comrades and close friends, including Major McLaurin, who wrote, "Poor Merv was one of the bravest men I have ever known and was absolutely without fear. Had he lived, I feel sure he would have risen high. But as it is, his fate was to be killed, and I am certain that he would have chosen to die with his face to the enemy, fighting for his king and country. Australia can ill afford to lose such men." Captain Mervyn Bournes Higgins was 29 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Captain Mervyn Bournes Higgins, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.